My neighbor refuses to pick up after her dog, despite it taking a massive dump next to my door, so now I'm reporting her and she can take this massive L. Posted by you/queen_of_the_mots. Man, I am still trying to process an exchange I had this morning. I was sitting on my balcony having breakfast, and there was this woman I've never spoken to, walking her dog. We don't know her, but my roommate and I see her down there pretty much every day. She's around our age, I would guess, so either in her 30s like us, or maybe in her 40s. We've never exchanged so much as a hello up to this point. Now, I really like my apartment complex. It's cute and pleasant to walk around, and the only thing that really sucks is when people don't clean up after their dogs. It's so freaking gross, and I hate when people don't do it. You're a grown-up who made a choice to have a pet. That comes with responsibilities that you have to keep up with. Most people around here do clean up after their dogs, from what I've seen, so we know it's just a few rotten eggs. If I see people who don't look like they're doing it, I call them out, which I know comes with risks, but come on people. The response is sometimes defensive, sometimes a bit of twisting the truth like, oh, I was just about to, but they all know that they should be doing it. Anyway, this woman had her dog right by our balcony, and my friend and I were just chatting until I noticed the woman walking away without cleaning it up. So I said, in a tone more polite than the situation probably merited, "Excuse me, are you going to clean up after your dog?" And she says in this snotty voice, "No, I'm good, thanks." I immediately burst out laughing, though not the good-humored kind, because I couldn't believe the audacity. I said, "Wow, that's really pathetic," which apparently was more than she'd expected me to do because she came marching back. I have to imagine most people don't call this woman out. For her to have that kind of immediate vitriol makes me think she's kind of spoiled in general and was angry I'd embarrassed her. But she clearly knew I was right because she had to come back and double down. So she comes running at us with this kindergarten logic and goes, "I'm not the only one who doesn't clean up after my dog. Lots of people don't clean up after their dogs." And I was like, so, how does that absolve you of adding to the problem? She keeps going on about how other people do it too, so I said, "Cool, then give me their names. Let's have a list, because I don't see any of them right now." And she's like, "Open your eyes and figure it out for yourself." I was like, "That's what I'm doing right now." She keeps shouting that she doesn't have to do anything she doesn't want to. And that she doesn't care what I think, so I was like, holy crap, I have never met such an entitled person. It's insane to me that you're getting this angry over someone expecting basic decency out of you. And she says, "No, you're the one who's entitled." I burst out laughing again and said, "I clean up after my animals. Me telling you I don't appreciate you leaving messes on our shared property doesn't make me entitled. You're a grown adult who knew what responsibilities you'd have when you got a pet. There are tons of other people who don't want to see your dog's crap. You're not the main character." At this point, I feel like this woman has never been confronted beyond her first snarky response, and I have a bubbly and friendly tone normally, so she probably expected to scare or shock me into silence with that callous initial reaction, because she was practically melting down, trying to upset me while my friend and I laughed. She gave me a snarky, "Have a nice day," and I wished her the same in an equal tone. Then she waddled off. And no, that's not me calling her fat. She was actually really fit, she just walks in a very exaggerated, cartoonish way like Jessica Rabbit or something. I thought she was doing it to be snarky, but my friend said she just always walks like that. We took a short video of her, sadly not of the incident itself as we had to go grab our phones, and I plan to take it to the front office just to let them know. It's only step 1. I doubt anything will be done with just this, but this has been driving me crazy, and I'm ready to start holding rude people accountable. Fortunately, I can use the corporate offices if the people here don't start putting pressure on those who are blatantly breaking their lease. It's right in there that you have to clean up after your animals. I'm not trying to get anyone evicted, but I'm hoping she at least feels the pressure to act like a grown-up and take care of her pets. Like, I wouldn't cry if she got a fine or something. Seriously though, it's painful to me that people like this even exist. She was so confident that she was somehow in the right that she didn't even try to lie about it. Like, woman, you aren't 12. The other people do it argument isn't gonna hold up in court, Lamau. First update 1 day later. So yesterday, I posted about having a nasty encounter with a neighbor of mine who is apparently too good to pick up after her dog. She made sure to let me know that I was the entitled one for not wanting dog poop all over the property, and she threw in some classist remarks, expecting maintenance people to clean it up. Someone suggested in the comments that she might be the pathetic sort to come back and intentionally try to provoke us. I thought for sure she wouldn't be that dumb. Turns out, I was the fool for giving her that much credit. But it's a good thing she did, because I got a great video of her. I'm not gonna upload it for a number of reasons, but I might if she tries to do it to me. It played out like entitled Loser 101, to a degree that it almost felt unreal. I can't believe people like this truly exist. She came by, intentionally brought her dog right beneath our balcony this time, and waited. I was like, cool, let's record. So we sit there, she waits for her dog to poop, and then she starts to walk away. Of course, proof, thank you. However, as she walked away, she saw that I was recording and turned back. She started shrieking, "Oh my God, are you trying to record me? You know that's illegal, right?" I said, "Yes, I am. It's not illegal. You're in a public space." She starts yelling at me to mind my own business, and that none of this concerns me. I told her that it did concern me because I live here too, and I don't want a poop-covered apartment complex. Nor do any of the other residents, I would imagine. She told me I didn't own the complex, like that makes it okay. We had a back and forth, and she started recording me back, telling me threatening things like, "Thanks for exposing yourself," implying that she's going to dox me and put it online. Hopefully, nothing comes of that because I want my privacy, but I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm not worried about it otherwise. When that didn't upset me, as she clearly intended, she started trying to insult me, and it was hilarious. "This is probably because of your weight." Lamau, my best friend, and I burst out laughing. She called me a fat BTCH, so I started recording again to catch anything else she might say. She told me she was reporting me, and I told her to please do it so they'd know who she was when I report her. It was freaking bonkers. This woman is a nightmare. I'm actually worried this is going to escalate into something even worse. But I guess we'll see. So the second she left, we took the video down to the front office. I showed it to one of the landlords, who was appalled. I mentioned the day before and how that had gone down, and I verified that she was indeed breaking her lease. Also, the landlord thanked me for policing people who just leave dog poop behind. She said they've been trying to get people to take responsibility, and it's turning into a real issue. After that, she gave me her email and asked me to send her the videos. I did so, and now we'll see how it unfolds. I also told her that the woman threatened to report me, so she may actually call in herself and unintentionally turn herself in. I also mentioned my concerns about potential retaliation so that it's on record. If she calls the cops, I fortunately have the video, so she won't be able to make up anything about me harassing her or something. I've been told not to engage with her if she comes back again, but to just contact the office and let them know she's here. I really don't know what to expect. I just wanted to enjoy a nice morning on my balcony. I'm seriously blown away. All this because someone asked you to pick up your dog's poop? What is this world coming to? Second update 1 month 3 weeks later. Hey everyone, sorry it's been a while. I know many of you have been waiting for an update. Unfortunately, it's not as exciting as some of you might have hoped, but I'm actually content with how things turned out. So, the very next day, Dog Poop Girl showed up again, but this time she didn't come near our balcony. I don't know if someone in her life told her she might get in trouble or what, but it was clear she still wanted us to know she was okay with what had happened. I emailed the landlords as they had requested and informed them that she was outside at that moment, etc. The office thanked me, and then I never heard from them again. The following day, a different woman was walking the dog. I thought that was a bit strange, but I figured maybe she hired someone to handle that task for her. For around a month or two, I think, we didn't see her, and we could only speculate. Maybe she lived with her boyfriend here. One of my roommates said she saw her with a guy, and he told her to stop staying over if she was going to cause problems. Maybe she got the fine and threw a temper tantrum and left. I figured she could also just be avoiding our side of the property. It was hard to say, but I was just glad not to have to deal with her. Finally, a couple of weeks ago, I was heading to the other side of the property, and I saw her with her dog. So she's still here, clearly just avoiding our side of the complex. And that is more than fine with me. No idea what went down during that period, and I'm not sure I ever will. I did notice she seemed to have dog poop bags with her this time, though, Lamau. I can only speculate that they caught her, fined her, and told her there'd be more fines after that. I don't know what happened, but they took some sort of action with the dog owners in our building because I now see every dog owner walking around with bags. The dog poop problem has gotten much better. Maybe knowing their neighbors were watching and tired of their nice walking area being covered in excrement motivated them to be more responsible. Here's hoping it stays at this level. I really don't like having confrontations, but I'm also not one to put up with other people's crap, figuratively or literally. I know that some of you were hoping for a big explosion or some juicy details about this woman being put in her place. Personally, I'm just glad not to have to see her anymore. She never tried to retaliate, thankfully, and I'm guessing people in her life let her know she was digging her own grave. I actually wonder if part of the reason she avoids us completely is so that we don't see that she's being forced to pick the poop up now, which is a hilarious thought. If anything else suddenly happens, I promise to update again. But as it stands, it looks like this has sort of quietly resolved itself. I do kind of wish I knew more details, just out of my own nosiness, but we can at least all be satisfied with the fact that she was absolutely convinced she was in the right, and it blew up in her face. She's probably still awful, of course, but at least someone is holding her accountable. I waited this long to see if anything else happened, but it looks like this might be the end of the story, which I'd honestly prefer. However, if anything comes up again, as I said, I'll let you all know. Thanks for sharing and venting with me while I dealt with a very frustrating situation. I appreciated all of your comments and support.
Second story.
My half-brothers were too young to remember how their father beat me black and blue and got me removed. Now 11 years later, they're reaching out to reconnect, and I finally have the chance to expose their dad. Posted by you/chemicalfroyo6239. I really need an outside perspective. I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mom kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mom refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what, she would keep letting him back into our lives and allow him to make me a scapegoat for anything that was wrong in his life, so I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mom was allowed to keep and raise my brothers as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mom and this man are still together, I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mom would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she'd just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mom talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said they'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. Richie even said he would be willing to drive him and James to visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind. This could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, while I know it would be a difficult thing to process, I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So, would I be wrong if I went through with it? Update 3 days later. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. After thinking a lot about what everyone said and having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this, and honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my brother Richie and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we're going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but Richie told him to knock it off, which, honestly, was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I've realized that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things more clearly. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Update 2 1 week later. Before anything, I want to say that I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, while others were saying I was a coward for not doing so. Some people argued that I was allowing the abuser to get away with it by not telling my brothers, and I even received DMs calling me an abuse apologist. Some accused me of being a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. In my last post, I specifically mentioned that I'm still working on sharing my past in a healthy way, with help from my therapist. Yet, I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away, with so many arguing about it one way or the other. It feels like no matter what I do, there will be issues, and I will upset someone. I'm aware of that, and I'm trying to navigate this in my own way, so please be respectful of that, even if you would have handled it differently. I'm in no way letting my stepdad get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child and teen to get him prosecuted. I've accepted that it's not going to happen. Just know that I am a real person who reads the comments, and not everything I do is perfect. But please, just be kind. I'm not saying this to stop people from giving me advice. I welcome advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post, I have met up with my brothers 3 more times, once with both of them, and twice just with Richie. There seems to be an instant bond between us, something I didn't even know I wanted. I'm really enjoying hanging out with them, which is amazing because I never thought I'd want to see any of my family again, let alone start developing a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to see a movie and then grabbed something to eat. We talked about our plans and what he's doing now, and eventually, the conversation shifted to me and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they hadn't been told much, but that our mom sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy ones and some clearer ones, but he didn't know for certain what happened. He recalled a lot of fighting and arguing between me and our stepdad. He mentioned having one very clear memory of me but wasn't sure if it was appropriate to share it. When he asked me what I remembered, I told him it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked Richie what his clear memory was, and he recalled me being about 8 years old. He remembered our stepdad taking off all my clothes, putting a dog collar on me, and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with a belt as I cried while eating out of the dog bowl. This actually happened many times while I was growing up, but Richie said he only remembered it happening once. I started crying, and Richie immediately apologized for bringing it up, but I told him not to. I was actually relieved that he remembered some of the abuse I went through. He guessed that the abuse by our stepdad was the reason I was taken away, and I confirmed it. I asked if our stepdad had ever abused him or James, and he said no, he hadn't. However, Richie mentioned that he wasn't close to either our mom or his dad. He said they were never amazingly loving people, but they never abused him or James. He apologized again. We talked more about our childhood, and I felt safer opening up about the abuse since Richie already remembered some of it. We discussed it further, with me trying to answer his questions and him answering some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I was honest, telling him that it does and that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me and for not sticking up for me. I assured him that nothing that happened was his fault or mine, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went home. Later, he messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and managed to keep living. I think he meant it in a sweet way, even though it came off a little awkward. I feel really amazing knowing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. Just a few weeks ago, I couldn't have imagined that he would even like me.
Third story.
My mother-in-law gave my baby chickenpox on purpose, saying it was the best and most natural way to kickstart her immune system, and my husband is on her side. Posted by you/mil chickenpox. I can hardly type this out because thinking about it makes me so angry. Earlier this year, my husband, Jack, 31M, and I, 27F, decided to spend Christmas with his family for the first time since our daughter, Annie, 13 months, was born last September. Since they live 12 hours away, we decided to stay for a few weeks before Christmas so they could spend lots of time with Annie. We arrived early as planned, and everything was great. I've had a few disagreements with my mother-in-law, Trish, 56F, in the past over my parenting style. She criticized me for using disposable diapers, buying baby food from the supermarket, and not raising Annie as an organic baby, but everything seemed fine. After a day or two of settling in, Jack and I decided to pick up a few gifts from a mall about an hour away before the last-minute rush kicked in. My father-in-law, 60M, tagged along. Trish said she was happy to take care of Annie. We got back a few hours later, and Annie was down for a nap on a blanket I didn't recognize. Trish said one of her friends had dropped by and given it as an early Christmas gift. It looked pretty old and worn, but I figured one of her hippie friends was just recycling it. The next 2 weeks were fine, aside from Trish making a point to prepare meals for Annie from scratch. I mentioned this to my husband, and he said to just let her be. Annie mostly mushed the food Trish gave her with her hands, or threw the bowls on the floor, as she's been doing lately. Trish said it would take her a while to get used to nutritious meals. I was getting sick of her meddling, but it was only for a few weeks, so for the sake of the holidays, I let it slide. The day after Christmas, Annie was really unsettled and wouldn't stop fidgeting and crying. I took her temperature, and she had a fever, so I kept an eye on her for the next few days, and it thankfully started to go down. This morning, she started to get a rash and blisters on her arms and legs, and I freaked out. I was packing a bag to drive to the doctor when Trish asked where I was going. I told her Annie had a rash, and I was taking her to see a doctor. She got a weird, smug smile on her face and told me there was nothing to worry about. When I asked her what she was talking about, she said, without even looking at Annie, that what she had was just chickenpox. I asked her how she could possibly know that, and she casually admitted that one of her friend's grandkids had chickenpox a few weeks ago, so she asked them to wipe a blanket over the child's arms, legs, and face and bring it to her house. At this point, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I asked if that blanket was the gift Annie was sleeping on. She said it was. I lost my crap. To be honest, I don't really remember what I said because I was up most of the night for 2 days checking on Annie. I just unleashed on Trish, asking what the F was wrong with her. Jack and my father-in-law came to try to calm things down, but Trish dug in her heels and said chickenpox was the best and most natural thing for Annie to build up her immunity. I already have a vaccination schedule in place with my pediatrician, and she was booked to get immunized for chickenpox at 18 months. We drove to see the doctor, and he confirmed she had it. He said I'll have to cut Annie's nails short and might have to tape socks on her hands while she sleeps because kids so young can scratch until they bleed, which could leave scars. On the drive back, Jack started making excuses for Trish, saying that she was only doing what she thought was best. I couldn't believe he was defending her, and we fought most of the way home until I told him to stop talking to me. Annie's been scratching like crazy, and I just had to tape socks over her hands. Trish tried to talk to me when we got back, but I told her to get out of my sight. We were meant to stay until Wednesday, but I just finished packing up our stuff so we can leave first thing in the morning. I'm so angry I can't even think. Whenever I hear Trish moving around in the kitchen, my heart starts beating faster, and I feel like going out there and grabbing her by the hair. I don't ever want to see her again or let my daughter see her again. What can I say to make her and my husband realize the enormity of what she's done? I don't think I can speak coherently to their faces until Annie gets better. Update 1-2 months later. Thank you to everyone for your comments, inbox messages, and advice after my original post. I read all the comments and messages, and they genuinely helped, especially the home remedies for stopping the itching. Now, onto the update. I didn't think it would be possible, but things got worse. I got up first thing the next morning and started packing our stuff into the car. Once I opened it up, I kept the keys in my pocket since I was going in and out. Usually, we use Jack's set and leave mine in my bag. While I was packing, he sat in the kitchen with Trish and my father-in-law, chatting and having coffee like nothing was wrong. Annie was mercifully still asleep, so I gently belted her in and closed her door. Then Jack came out and asked if I had everything, and I said we were good to go as soon as he was. He said okay, and calmly took out his key set and centrally locked the car, locking Annie in. I asked him what the hell he was doing, and he said we wouldn't be leaving until I apologized to Trish. I think I was stunned into silence because he then took the chance to rehash what he said the previous day, that Trish thought she was doing what was best, that chickenpox doesn't unalive you, and that I was making a bigger deal out of this than I needed to and making Trish feel bad. Yes, making her feel bad. All the comments from my last post were swirling around in my head, and I told him he needed to stop being a son and start being a father. He screwed up his face and said he would always be Trish's son, and that was the point, that nobody should speak to his mother the way I had the day before, and I needed to apologize to clear the air. I felt like I had entered some kind of weird twilight zone where I had accidentally married a 9-year-old instead of an adult man, so I just asked him to open the car so we could leave. He repeatedly refused, then walked back inside and said he would see me in there when I was acting more reasonable. You can probably guess what happened next. I'd left my bag on the passenger seat, so he probably assumed my keys were in there. Nope, I waited 30 seconds, then just hopped into the car and drove away. My phone blew up with a million calls from him, Trish, and my father-in-law. Eventually, my mom, dad, and my sister Jess, who I'm super close with, called as well. I briefly texted Jess about what was happening the day before, but she was stunned to get the full blow-by-blow. By the time I was on the open road, I asked her to call Jack and tell him he could walk home for all I care. When she heard my side of the story, and not Jack's, which was apparently that I had gone crazy, frightened Trish, snatched Annie, and sped away, she calmed way down. Mom, Dad, and Jess offered to start driving and meet me halfway so I could switch with one of them and wouldn't have to drive the full 12 hours by myself in one day. I was so grateful to see them that I pretty much broke down in a truck stop parking lot while blubbering that I loved them. They all took turns driving while I rested. It was super reassuring to talk it over and hear that Trish and Jack were the unreasonable ones. Once we got back, I stayed at my parents' overnight, and they said I could stay as long as I needed. The next few days were fairly tense. I was up most of the night making sure Annie didn't scratch, which she did anyway, somehow, and it seemed like she just cried and cried until she was exhausted. She now has 5 scars on her face and a few others on her arms from scratching. I know appearances shouldn't matter, but I'm so angry that her skin is marked for life now over some stupid BS. This whole thing is just something I never expected to happen. I answered one of Jack's calls only to have him start a rant that he didn't recognize this person I had become, so I hung up on him. He was due to come back for the start of the work year, which I wasn't looking forward to, but I figured we could make it work as long as Trish was 12 hours away. Then, at around 11 p.m. one night, I got a very short and formal text from my father-in-law via Jack's phone, saying that Trish had come down with shingles and was in the emergency room, that Jack was staying there to care for her, and that he would work from their house remotely once the year started back up. Jack's been there for the past few weeks tending to Mama's every whim. I'm sure she's put on an Oscar-worthy performance of having one foot in the grave, and according to Google, it should be any day now that her painful, crusty pustules go gently into that sweet night. A few weeks ago, I was honestly so tired, overwhelmed, and in disbelief that I didn't know what to do. Now that I'm back at home with people who actually care about me, I think I'm starting to realize how lucky I am to see the weird relationship with his mommy this early on. The fact that he cares more about Trish than his own daughter speaks volumes. When he eventually comes back, I think we'll have to have a serious talk about our future together. Commenter. You only get shingles if you've had chickenpox, the new vaccine prevents it. Rather ironic. I'd get divorce papers served before Mommy Dearest decides your daughter should become a breatharian or join Scientology.